Touch of Death is back. That's all. Fine, Iron Skin Brew is gone and you have Shuffle back. We good now? No? Well, fuck, alright. Brewmaster has had a bunch of changes to talents, baseline abilities, and coupled with a bunch of Legos and conduits, to be fair, Brewmaster seems to be pretty freaking strong. Grab them while it's hot, am I right? But not as hot as our stream. Hey! This is a segue. Righto, we stream at twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline 5 days a week, testing specs in Shadowlands and running dungeons and raids with you. Yeah, you. So come on down, throw a follow, and maybe you'll like it. Right, Touch of Death. Well, it's back for all specs that Monk has, and all specs have it as an executability, and once again, feels pretty good. Now, you also have a unique functionality to it. The Brewmaster one will clear stagger based on 200% of the damage dealt. This will only work when normal mobs have less HP than you or when players and bosses are under 15% HP. So not the most reliable defensive if clearing stagger is your goal. The one-shot or simply high damage dealing executability is still nice and gives a satisfying feel to the spec, both in AoE and on dungeon and raid bosses. Iron Skin Brew has been replaced by Celestial Brew. Celestial Brew is a big absorb shield with a 30-second cooldown that can be buffed for each purifying brew you cast, based also on your stagger level. This is a very welcome addition to a spec with little self-sustain and high reliance on healers. That plus the fact that stagger doesn't seem to work on magic damage anymore, at least from the tooltip, makes this a very welcome change. Since there are no more charges to be shared with Iron Skin Brew, Purifying Brew also only has 2 charges to play with. And really, that's enough. Although sometimes that doesn't seem enough to increase Celestial Brew and its shield to the max, which is great because otherwise it would be just another ability that doesn't provide you with any choice in terms of playstyle. Also, to replace Iron Skin Brew effect, you will have Shuffle. Shuffle is basically a stagger buff that you have to maintain. And maintain is a strong word. You activate Shuffle with Blackout Kick, Keg Smash, and Spinning Crane Kick for different durations on each one. And yeah, Spinning Crane Kick is back as a baseline ability to give some more AoE power to Brewmasters without needing a talent for it. The thing is, Shuffle is so easy to maintain by just playing your class that it doesn't really require your attention at all. Invoke Newzaw, the Black Ox, try to say that 3 times fast, is back as a baseline ability. As a talent, it was rarely picked, and as a spec, it was already weird for Brewmasters to have so few cooldowns. The ability does moderate damage and redirects 25% of your stagger to it, a versatile cooldown in both offense and defense. Nice. Plus, it's freaking cool, an ox pet. Who has that? Nobody. Clash also made its way back. Normally, it's supposed to make you and your target charge towards each other while rooting all targets within 6 yards. But it's bugged, has been bugged for the entirety of beta and alpha, and simply does nothing. One day though, one day. And more baseline shit. Expel Harm has been buffed to not only draw in the orbs, but also have a minimum baseline heal and damage return component. This is definitely an upgrade and something to add to player agency when it comes to your decision to actually cast it, or wait for more orbs that can translate into more damage dealt, right? If the tooltip did not mislead me. I mean, sometimes I can't remember if my reading skills graduated high school. Blackout Strike has been replaced by Blackout Kick with 1 extra second as a cooldown. Not sure where the design flaw is, but it doesn't generate stacks of Elusive Brawler, which would coincide with its tooltip, except the mastery still indicates it should. And if it ends up not generating dodge chances, then it could be a pretty big nerf in terms of tankiness. Going for the Kyrians, you get Weapons of Order as the class Covenant ability. This is a 2-minute cooldown that boosts your mastery quite a bit and also refreshes the cooldown of Keg Smash as you cast it. It also makes Keg Smash debuff the target's hit to receive 5% more damage from you, stacking up to 5 times. Couple this with a specific Keg Smash legendary and you get a pretty cool playstyle that maximizes damage dealt in dungeons-like scenarios. A similar purpose is also served by Bone Dust Brew from the Necrolords. On a 1-minute cooldown, you hit everyone in an AoE fashion and your abilities have a 35% chance to strike a second time for 35% of the damage in either shadow damage or healing if you heal, but that might not be something you can optimize or even try to. But the AoE part can help with AoE damage, maintaining aggro and all that good stuff. On top of all of this, it's a brew, meaning you reduce its cooldown with your rotation. Yay! Going with the Night Fae will give you the most beautifully animated ability in the entire cosmos. Feline Stomp, a 30-second cooldown with no cost. You strike your enemies with a big-ass stomp for decent damage. Your abilities also have the chance to reset its cooldown, and from the tooltip it says it lights up enemies with Breath of Fire. Not sure what that means, but it does not apply Breath of Fire. Other than that, no effect outside pure AoE damage. Pretty though. And we arrived at Venthyr. Ho Venthyr, with your vampires and balls and fancy nobles and Fallen Order. Holy shit, this does so much damage. The way this works is you spawn a portal that funnels in little monk clones that can DPS and heal, and your Ox members, aka the Brewmasters, will last longer and spit out Breath of Fire. And their Breath of Fire does more damage than yours. So yeah, nothing else fancy going on aside a little healing and a lot of damage. And to be fair, sometimes that's all you need, cause God knows, monks are tanky enough. Since Ironskin Brew went away, some talents were adjusted to accommodate. Celestial Brew. Light brewing simply reduces the cooldown of both Purifying and Celestial Brew by 20%. This might become the baseline once again for its ease of access and high reliability. Spitfire is dog shit still. Black Ox Brew is one of those abilities that provide you with on-demand tankiness, but in the grand scale of things, its issue remained from past expansions. If you don't press it on cooldown, you will lose out on overall damage. Value. Not damage, it's just value. And you rarely have to press it on cooldown to get the full value out of it. To replace New Zaw, Exploding Keg, the Legion artifact ability, made its way back. It has a 1-minute cooldown, but it competes with Rushing Jadewind. This talent row has been dead for a long time, and with the fewer overall charges of brews used, Special Delivery is even worse now. Exploding Keg does add dodge for 3 seconds by making the enemies hit by the keg miss their attacks. 3 seconds is mediocre, but it's still arguably the only defensive mechanic on the row. Since Rushing Jadewind was supposed to complete the AoE toolkit of monks so you can keep aggro and deal some actual damage, Exploding Keg has a long way to go before it becomes competitive. And lastly, Celestial Flames. This is the kind of playstyle I would love to get into when playing my monk. Problem is, it's shit, especially compared to High Tolerance. And no, please don't nerf High Tolerance, cause it won't make us feel good if that's the reason why we would pick Blackout Combo or Celestial Flames. Having interesting mechanics perform poorly is just frustrating and not enticing whatsoever. Legendaries are the good shit though, and I am so glad they're back. Stuff like Charred Passions can alter your gameplay and DPS profile, which is nice, as a concept at least. In terms of actual damage, I was either not using it right or the effects are incredibly underwhelming. Mighty Pour seems to have a different effect than the present tooltip. In-game, it makes Celestial Brew increase your armor by 15% for 7 seconds, and gives Purifying Brew a 15% chance to not consume a charge. I mean, this is similar to an Azerite trait, its effect being moved to Purifying Brew instead. The effect is powerful on paper. 15% armor means the shield lasts longer. It does bake the bulk of your tankiness into Celestial Brew though. Not sure how that will end up feeling. I feel like Xiaohao's Might is an old mechanic we had in the past. Maybe Legion? Tiger Palm has a 10% chance to deal 300% the normal damage and reduce the cooldown of your brews by another second. Don't think this is good right now with the increasing incentive of not using Tiger Palm since it doesn't help with shuffle, where before it indirectly helped with Iron Skin Brew uptime, now, eh. Lastly, Storm Stout's Last Keg makes a return with a 30% extra damage to Keg Smash and an additional charge to it. This is the legendary I mentioned would work well with Weapons of Order, giving you an extra charge when you activate it. This can also work with Bone Dust Brew, where you just throw more kegs in to increase the chance of extra damage. Possibly the funnest legendary for Brewmasters. And we get to the crux, the potential biggest power gains or losses. Soulbinds are essentially secondary talent trees from which you pick a route to build that can enable different passives and, more importantly, conduits. There are 3 types of conduits, and each Soulbind route unlocks a different combination of these. Based on how you want to build your monk, you might want to opt for a specific conduit type to be available. There are a few Soulbind traits that tanks can exploit the most. For instance, Mechanicos from the Kyrians comes with Sparkling Drift Globe Core that procs a 3-second stun AoE on enemies around you when you dip below 35% HP. With an internal 1-minute cooldown, this could be everything you need in an M+ environment to handle any large amount of stagger and make it possible for your healer to get you back up. From the Necrolords, you can go with the Bonesmith and get some more offensive traits like Heimir's Arsenal Marrowed Gemstone. Since Brewmasters are usually the best tank to benefit from crit, getting more of this can actually turn into a big defensive boost when you get healed, and it's on a more endurance-focused path when it comes to the Soulbinds. Win-win? Corraine from the Night Fae also has a tank trait in Hold the Line. Standing still, although not always advisable, will still be something tanks can do the most, at the same time benefiting from 10% less physical damage taken. 10% is a lot for a small passive. But if that's not your thing, General Draven from the Venthyr comes with its last row trait, Service in Stone, where you get 10% damage reduction while below 40% HP. The death effect might not be something you will be looking for, but it's there in case shit happens. Not to mention, this Soulbind also has Hold Your Ground, similar to Corraine's. 10% stamina will be least effective on monks since they have the smallest HP pool, but at the same time they value each point of health more than any other tank since it contributes to your stagger soak pool. Health is a resource after all, and all of those will or won't matter depending on what conduits you want to use. The 3 types are Endurance, focused on your long defensive cooldowns, stuff like Fortifying Ingredients for a 5% absorb shield, or Harm Denial to increase expel harm healing. Finesse conduits, which affect your utility and ability to crowd control mobs and fights, bring Lingering Numbness, which is an example how to control a target with a 60% slow for 5 seconds. It's pretty good, right? And Potency, the actual power throughput. Right now there are only 2 available, but I was able to luckily loot Walk with the Ox, which is a super nice mechanic befitting Brewmasters. Shuffling constantly will reduce Nuzal's cooldown. Pretty dope. Celestial Effervescence, I'm not a native speaker, what do you want from me? Makes your Celestial Brew increase your self-healing by 20%. This seems to work really well with Healing Elixir and the potential crit heavy build I mentioned earlier. If it becomes a thing, I called it first! Crit Brewmaster's Banzai! Evasive Stride is another decent upgrade where Shuffle makes your stagger stronger. Since Shuffle is a set and forget, this is pretty much up all the time and can end up as a fair bit of overall tankiness. Shuffle is, for some, an upgrade to Brew's, Iron Skin that is, and for others is just the same as Iron Skin Brew. Personally, I think the playstyle of managing brew charges in high-end content felt more engaging. Yeah, if you played correctly, you would end up with Iron Skin on you 100% of the time, which is the same case with Shuffle. But there are no charges involved, no decisions to be made, or player agency introduced into this, which takes away from the depth of the spec, making mitigation feel like it's playing itself and you are just along for the ride. Stagger was always difficult to balance without ruining the spec, and the only negative thing I have to say about Iron Skin Brew is that I just had to spam it. although it wasn't on the GCD, while Celestial Brew is. Other than this, it feels like Brewmaster is in a similar yet not as worse state as Guardian. The talents need some massive looking into. The Breath of Fire build Blizzard has been hoping we play is just incredibly mediocre. I would love to play a Breath of Fire build. I would love to play Blackout combo and not feel like I'm just splashing around in my own little corner with no effect on the combat. The devs seem to have a weird attitude towards talents and builds that we're not using, where they just look at them and see them as being unpopular. And from a point of view, that's correct, but also wrong. It's not that they are unpopular, but they are just underpowered. Options are first underpowered before they become unpopular. If we didn't choose Celestial Flames because we didn't like it, despite it being stronger offensively and defensively than the other two options, then yeah, I agree, it's unpopular. But calling things unpopular feels like the devs are missing the point. However much they like to think people are playing what they think it's fun, people that care about the spec will largely play what's good over what's fun in almost all scenarios. And we would know, because you lovely viewers always spill the beans in the comments. Hopefully we can get this out there, although it might still be my opinion. Is it? Let us know in the comment section below. And thank you to our Patreon for supporting the channel and everything that we do. We love you guys. It makes all of this possible. It's definitely a humbling sentiment and we really appreciate you for it. It makes all of these videos and our podcast and our super secret project, which is our music video, a thing that can happen. And if you, dear viewer, are also interested in supporting us a little bit more, of course it's not mandatory, but it does help and we really appreciate it. You can check the link down below to our Patreon and maybe our merch website, Teespring. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.